How we doing, too? I wanted to reiterate on the whooping and spanking thing. I wanted people to realize some of these effects that happened to someone that was abused as a child. We're going to talk about, what happens to them as they grow. And one thing is they begin to lose their sense of self, right? Someone who's abused by their parents, they don't know, they lose who they are because they don't want to get whooped again, and they don't know what's going to trigger that parent. Like, because a parent might whoop you for one thing, and then not that same thing they might not worry about. So someone who's abused is always in a fight or flight type of environment when they're at home. So they don't want to be who they can't be who they really are because they don't want to get punished for it. And when you're in that situation for years in, you forget who you originally are because you're playing something else for protection. It's kind of like the guy that played Joker. He played that role for so long that he lost himself, right? The same thing is happening with your child when you beat them for every single thing. They don't know how to react. They don't want to speak wrong. They don't want to joke wrong. They don't want to do anything that's too confident because they don't want to get punished for it. They don't want to get hit for it. And this is, you got to understand, this is the reason that the slave master beat the slave, to make them feel less than, to make them feel absolutely weak and have no confidence in themselves. You're literally doing what the slave master did to the slave, to make the slave a nobody, to make the slave conform to everything and be scared. And the slave wouldn't even leave the plantation. That's what the beatings did. They didn't even, if they had the opportunity, they wouldn't even leave the plantation, whether they had chains on or not, because the psychological thing of physically beating them, right? Why in the world would someone with a working brain think that you're not doing the same thing to your child when you're beating them? It's literally the same thing. I don't believe the slave master beat their own children. They beat us and our children and made each other beat each other. But they not finna do that to their own. They want their own to have a good life, right? Whoopings and beating your children takes their confidence away completely. They'll never be assured of themselves because they don't want to mess up. They don't want to mess up. They're tired of being because there's people that didn't live that type of life, and a lot of those people are extremely confident. They don't allow people to treat them any type of way, because you got to understand, you're training your child to take disrespect from people that are supposed to love them, that's supposed to care for them. So they're going to do that in their relationships. They're going to deal with people who aren't good for them because, hey, their parents did that. And their parents told them that they loved them after doing that. And the child had to love these people that did them dirty, or they weren't going to eat, or they weren't, or they feared that they weren't going to eat, or they feared they weren't going to get the necessity things, what they thought they needed, because they don't know. The only thing they know is what their parents is giving them, right? And I'm a deep believer in how you treat your children is how the world is going to treat your children. So if you bully your children, there's a high chance they're going to be bullied, and they're going to be extremely timid, and they're not going to know who they are as a person, because they've had to suppress that so long to survive. Stop beating your kids. You don't know why you did it. You're doing it. You only did it because that's what your grandfolks told you, or your mom told you to do. and you don't know no other way to communicate with the child. My last point here. If I think it is completely cowardly to beat a child, but your people are mad when a man disciplines a grown woman. They will come beat you up. But you beat a child, nothing happens.